It's so crazy. My entire Instagram feed is just black. Like everyone is participating, raising awareness against like racism and discrimination. Fascinating. I love that so many people and a lot of people that have a lot of influence are part of it. But that won't be today's topic. I already made a full video yesterday, my standpoint. If you're interested in that, go check it out. Thanks a lot for everyone behaving and being nice in the comments. But today it's time for a different topic, all about music. A lot of people asked me to do like a scientific music production tips kind of video. And it mostly has to do with how speakers actually behave. It's very interesting and very important as a producer to know how that physically is actually working, because if you know that, you can address it in your production. Like, it's a very sneaky, nerdy, detailed way of trying to improve your sound a lot. And as a quick disclaimer, this won't improve your music part of your music. If the vocals suck, the timing is wrong, the song just doesn't have a flow and vibe, the style is totally boring and off, it's just a bland song, nothing will change anything about that. So this is for people that already know how to make music, full tracks, know to arrange them, automate them, have like interesting contrast parts in there, like a full song that is enjoyable and people can listen to. Because all of that technical stuff won't help you if the music doesn't convince. But anyways, intro, and then let's get started. So let's talk about speakers, because as you know, speakers are the music producer's way of speaking to the world. We work on things within our computer, zeros and ones, and they get translated through current to a speaker that tells the speaker how to move. And as of today, there is no real other method. Yes, there's some devices that transfer like waves and vibration through your bone to the inner of your ear, but that's not really used by a lot of people. And I tested it once. It's a little weird, but like, yeah, speakers is our way to talk to the world. So we have to control them. There is no other way. And these are objects that work in a very old school, analog, physical kind of way. We got like a membrane that is swinging back and forth, and this creates like air pressure waves and movement that our ear can detect, and our brain, whatever it does, very complicated, but that's then what we hear. First of all, every human's hearing is slightly different due to how our ears are shaped, the inner of our ear, how much weight we have, the hairs within our ears. Very complicated, but in general, most ears work the same and hear the same, more or less. The changes are very slight. And we have a range that we can hear as humans, like the frequencies. The audible spectrum goes from 0 Hertz to 20,000 Hertz. Most humans don't hear that entire range. I think like below 20-30 Hertz, no one actually hears what's going on. It's more like a rumble that you feel. And above like 17, 18, 19K, most people also stop hearing. It's too high up in the frequencies. The younger you are, the more you can actually hear of it. The older you get, the less you can hear of it. By the way, just like a side random fact, there were supermarkets in Germany that used very high frequency sounds to annoy young people from hanging out in front of the supermarkets and like making everything dirty. It was a sound that like only people below 18 could hear, usually around like 14, 15, 16. Once you got older, you couldn't hear it. But I think this was banned or stopped because it didn't really work, but just like a random side fact. So in general, you can say anything that is outside that frequency range doesn't matter to music production. There are some speakers, I think even these right here, go higher up in frequencies, but it just doesn't matter. It can produce it, but you can't hear it. So a high and low cut in music production is generally advised. Cut away the very low, especially the very low, because it will give you more room to mix all other elements. The bass is very dense, very heavy, takes a lot of energy away, and if you can't hear, and if your speakers can't produce it, why have it in there? Does that mean you should low cut everything? Maybe. It really depends on the element. If it doesn't have any low frequency information, don't cut it, because every EQ you use is introducing problems in the phasing. I know they're linear phase EQs, but they have also other problems. I personally have a low cut on my master. Sometimes it does funky stuff I can't explain, then I just leave it out, but I usually cut into the song. And you can do like 25 Hz, 30 Hz, 35. It really depends on the key of the song and where the kick sits. At the end, it's just something you should try out. If it sounds better and gives you more room to make the song louder, then go ahead and do it. If it starts cutting into your song and removing bass that you intend to be there, then just leave it. And the next part is like knowing about the movement of the cone. Like this is a membrane that is moving back and forth. That's all what it's doing. Like just that back and forth movement is creating everything we can hear. Because in our ear we have something similar that's just reacting to movement. And this can get quite busy. If you've ever like watched your speakers on full blast in a very busy song, they have to move a lot. Again, especially for the low frequencies. That's why they're so energy intensive, because the speaker has to work so much to produce them. It has to travel the most back and forth. And you as a producer can control that movement. The less elements are hitting at the same time, the less it has to do and the cleaner the sound it produces. That's why a drop with just kick and bass sounds so amazing. It's just like very minimal. It's very easy for the speaker to take care of it, to present it to the listener. So definitely make sure, especially bass heavy parts, to keep them simple and clean. And the next part that goes along with like the movement of the cone is also like the attacks of sounds. For example, especially in electronic dance music, the kick is the heaviest element. It makes the speaker move the most. And if the attack of the kick isn't like alone, it's masked with other elements, it will interfere, and that impact, the nicest part of the kick, the heaviest, won't be that audible. So I know a lot of producers that actually heavily sidechain, and that's a technique that is known by almost every producer on this planet, but they do it in a way that the sidechain carves out at least enough to leave the very first attack bit of the kick 100% alone. This way, if you look at the waveforms, if you zoom into a song and look at the attack, the starting point in the waveform of a kick, it looks the same at every single spot in the song. That's how much they carve it out, which makes the job for the speaker a lot easier. If it's something that you should implement, that's really up to you. That's your artist intent if you want to have these kicks carved out a lot. But in general, to most people, it sounds bigger and fatter and you get more of that attack that goes through. And like the third big part are like phase issues. These have to do with left and right. Like you usually have two speakers taking care of the sound, a stereo pair of speakers. And if one of them makes something and the other makes the opposite, it cancels each other out. Or maybe both do the same and it adds up. That's why you should always check your mixes in mono, because still a lot of people listen on kitchen radios to music, a lot of people listen on their phone to music. It should also work in mono. Yes, it's always a compromise. There is no way to make it sound as good in stereo as in mono. I personally focus on stereo a lot more. I just make sure in mono that it's still the same song, that there's still a vocal audible, the guitar audible, because I love to have my guitars really wide, and if you then flip them to mono, they disappear. And yes, in mono, in my songs, they disappear a little bit, but it's a compromise I can live with. I want to have that width in stereo. I just love that. The next part is then also the tempo, like the distance between each and every element. If you make, for example, a kick shorter, It gives the entire track more room and the speaker more time to move precisely. And you hear that a lot, especially like in electronic dance music songs that are made for radio. Their kicks are tiny. They're really short. They're just like clicks. There's almost nothing anymore to them. No body. It's just like that one little attack click that goes through all of the other elements. And by keeping it short and small, there's more room for everything else, which gives you again the impression of it being louder. I always say like mixing is like a box. You have like a certain amount of room and you can fill it with elements. And if you fill it in a very efficient way, you can put a lot in there. If you take a bass, which is like a huge part, there is not much more room for everything else. But if you make the bass smaller, there is more room for all of the other elements. It's like a limited amount of space. We are, as music producers, actually very limited by technical things, the speaker mostly. And we have to know about these limitations and try within these boundaries to just get the most out of it. And every once in a while, watch your speaker, see how the membrane reacts. If it does something that looks strange, usually the sound is too much for the speaker. As I said in the beginning, all of that doesn't matter if your music doesn't convince. If you have a song that just works and you want to like make it bang even harder in a club, make it more minimal, cut away frequencies that are not needed, push everything a little more towards the limit. Anyways, that's it for today. The rest of the day is me sitting here making music. And I'm starting to work on another sample pack. As you know, I did one a month ago, a special virus crisis, very, very low in price sample pack for all you guys. And I'm now thinking about doing a second one. And then there's also the upstairs studio that needs a little bit of work to try and make it look nice and getting closer to finishing it. Anyways, thanks a lot for watching. See you tomorrow again here in the studio. Sign out.
I know all the bad boys, but you're the only one that I beg for.